he needs to turn the guns on back onto Biden. I think if we do this and you do it smartly, this could be a net positive for the campaign. Even the Biden regime admits 8 million illegal alien invaders have come in the country since Biden took over. We calculate it's between 12 and 15 million. This has been building for years. And now this Sharia supremacism, and it's not going to back down. They control right now the Ivy League campuses.
Welcome to Never Mind The Ballots, the politics show that everyone's talking about, with me, Harry Cole from The Sun. As you can see, this week we're in Washington, D.C. As Trump and Biden go head-to-head on the 5th of November, we'll bring you the state of the race. Coming up, I'm joined by Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's former right-hand man, and I grill Niall Gardner from the Heritage Foundation about why he's suing Prince Harry. Next, on Never Mind The Ballots, we're joined by Donald Trump's former right-hand man, the host of The War Room, Steve Bannon, a controversial figure with some explosive opinions. I started by asking him, what exactly is going on in Donald Trump's trial?
He's in a court in Lower Manhattan on these kind of bizarre trumped up charges of these bookkeeping issues that they've got him up on, but really is to take a porn star, a playmate, Bunny, and the Billy Bush situation of grab him by the whatever, and just to play that to the American people for the next 6 to 8 weeks while he's off the campaign trail. So we're in a very tough part of this campaign right now. And President Trump has got to focus, continue to focus that his opponent is Joe Biden. His opponent is not the judge in the court, and so every day is going to be a tough one.
Do you think he'll be able to resist the temptation to have a massive swing at the judge, end up, hindering his chances of making this making this go away, or is it, is there in a perverse way, like he did in 2016, sort of a way of sort of hacking the media and having blanket coverage that you can't buy? Is it priced in almost?
Well, it's a great observation. Number one, the global media, which has not been following his rallies, are forced to follow when he walks to the sticks in the afternoon. But I think that message has got to be tailored about Biden and not every day just about the judge. More importantly, you saw the other day when he went up to Harlem and they were standing 6 and 7 and 8 deep cheering for him. What I call a bodega run. He went to see the Bodega Association. He needs to do that like every other day. He needs to run for mayor of New York for the next 6 to 8 weeks. When he's out of the courtroom, he needs to turn the guns on back onto Biden. I think if we do this and you do it smartly, this could be a net positive for the campaign. But remember, the mainstream media right here now, MSNBC, the New York Times, CNN, it's just nonstop coverage of Stormy Daniels, who's like, she's now become the Virgin Mary, the playmate Bunny, everything that happened on Billy Bush. It's not about the bookkeeping issue. It's all about Trump being a troglodyte when it comes to women.
And talking of his opponent, Joe Biden, you think he'll definitely be the candidate? You think there's not time that the Democrats could come for him?
I think that there was a huge movement earlier in the year. I think Biden, when he stepped up and got jacked up for a State of the Union message and really turned the State of the Union to a campaign, which speech we haven't seen, I think that put everything else aside. I think Newsom, Michelle Obama, all that, they've got Biden. They believe that they can win with Biden. They believe that they can see a way to eke this out, although the electoral map is against them. I think they're coming all in. Remember, Harry, they've raised $2 billion for this for the next 8 months. And they're going to just swamp President Trump with TV ads. They've already started. They got all these outside groups themselves. So they're going to play an air game, which is to just crush Trump in traditional media. Trump, as you know, is very under-resourced. And at least right now, 25% of every dollar into the Trump campaigns essentially go to fight this lawfare. So he's going to be very strapped for resources, much like in 2016. It's going to have to be a very smart campaign like we ran in 16, highly targeted to those 25. This is going to come down to 25 counties in 7 states in America. He's got to really focus on that. And
how are relations between you two? It's been a bit of a roller coaster over the years. You seem a little bit down on your old pal's chances. Are you speaking?
I'm not down on him. I think I've been the biggest advocate that he should run. He was
down on his chances rather than down on him.
No. I'm just saying right now, every day here's a fight. Our side, and MAGA particularly, really got very confident, and people were so excited. The polling's been just incredible that people actually started to think, well, he's already going to win. We're going to add some seats in the House. We're going to take the Senate. What I'm telling people is that every day here is going to be a challenge. We got to fight this every day through, like your show, right? This is about every ballot. You got to turn out every voter. You got to make sure every ballot's counted. All legitimate ballots are counted. This is going to be a dogfight. And right now, I've seen just a little bit of cockiness on our side coming in, because the polling, for your audience, the polling's been tremendous for Trump. But the main they have the high ground of every major institution in our country. It's even much worse than in Great Britain. And they're using that now. They're doing a full flex on this. So Trump's going to win this, but man, it's going to be a fight, a real fight.
One fight that I can't help notice that Donald Trump has slightly sat out in the last week is the battle in Congress over funding for Ukraine. I know you called the guys and girls who voted against it, voted for increasing the funding traitors. But Donald Trump's been relatively mute on that issue. Is he sitting this one out?
I think actually worse than mute. He said Johnson was doing a good job. No, look, the president's got enough on his plate with the lawfare. And the people around him did set up this meeting in Mar-a-Lago. It took about like 10 or 15 minutes. The president has been supportive of Johnson's, no doubt about it. We're of that, I would say, ultra MAGA wing of the Trump movement that detests Johnson. They think he sold out the country. And here's the reason. He promised over and over and over again, nothing would go forward until our southern border was secured. Folks should understand that even the Biden regime admits 8 million illegal alien invaders have come in the country since Biden took over. We calculate it's between 12 and 15 million. The Republican establishment promised nothing would go forward on Ukraine until that was secure. They just threw that away last week to make sure they could fall in with the arms industry, with the Uniparty, with the Silicon Valley and Wall Street, to all $61 billion to a regime over there that is 500,000 combat troops short because parents are getting their kids out of the country instead of having them volunteer for the Ukrainian army. So it's a complete disaster. We're leading a movement. By the way, we're leading a movement to replace Johnson, to have another motion to vacate.
Another speaker, and we haven't done that enough times this year, right? But it seems to me like you're more annoyed about not attributing funds to the southern border than you are about arming Ukraine against Putin. Is that fair?
Oh, no. We totally disagree with even the army. Look, this is, as Churchill said in about World War II, this is an unnecessary war.
A war the Ukrainians didn't start, though.
Well, no, Ukrainians didn't start, but the EU and NATO had a lot to do with this. Let's go back in time to the overthrowing of a pro-Putin, not good guy, but democratically elected government by Victoria Nuland, the State Department, and the party at Davos, Brussels, all of it. EU and NATO are up to their neck in this thing. And my point is, this is such a big deal. If the powers that be in Europe believe that Putin's going to come across the North German plain into Poland, into Germany, if he believes they're going to go into the Balkans, if they believe you're going to go into Finland and Scandinavia, then step up to the plate and start spending some money. Number one, only England, I think, and Poland come close to the 2% required at NATO. But more importantly, your own internal defenses are a disaster and a joke. No one of your intelligence services actually believe that Putin's going to go on offense here militarily. If it's such a big deal, why don't you put the money in? This 50 billion euro deal that you talk about is not 50 billion. It was 12 billion year one, 12 billion year two, and then an option for the other years. The United States has already put in $129 billion, of which only half is gone to combat capability. 60% of it went to Zelensky and these oligarchs to go buy their yachts in Monaco and their dachas everywhere else. It's the most corrupt government in all of Europe. We don't support it. We adamantly don't support it, and we're calling for a forensic investigation to find out exactly where Zelensky and the rest of his corrupt cronies stole the money.
I'm pretty sure they would disagree with you on that and say they were spending on arms. Do you think that Donald Trump...
Harry, hang on for a second. The lead story in yesterday's Financial Times, which is not exactly a MAGA newspaper, the lead story in the Financial Times is the 10th largest taxpayer in all of Ukraine, which is some European that owns a company there, is talking about how they've threatened to take his company away unless he gives them 50% of the take of his company. It's not MAGA saying this. The Zelensky regime and Ukrainian politics is already ranked as the third most corrupt nation in all the earth and the most corrupt nation in Europe. That is outside parties saying that. There is it's empirical evidence that less than half of the American money we've given today, which is $129 billion, has gone to the battlefield. The rest has gone somewhere in the Ukrainian government. And I'm sure a lot of that was spiffed off the top by Zelensky and these corrupt oligarchs.
These views, do you think that the future Trump administration would share and, would have an implication on future funding once Trump's got through the election? You say he's too busy now, but what's he going to do once he's in the White House?
Harry, look no farther than J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is one of the rising stars of the party. And you already should understand, this is a big bone of contention inside the Republican Party. J.D. Vance is a rising star. Senator Graham took him on Sunday, said he didn't know anything about it because he's put forward the math of the Ukraine war doesn't work. Our 60 billion is not going to get close to victory. They're going to come back just like in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're going to need another 40 billion, another 50 billion every year. That's what we want to stop. We just spent $7 trillion in Iraq in 20 years. We spent $2 trillion in Afghanistan in 20 years. The American people are tired of it. J.D. Vance is that type of rising star. Josh Hawley's that type of rising star of America First. But in the Republican Party, you still at least have a third that are hardcore neocon like Lindsey Graham. So this fight is far from over, and it will be a fight even in President Trump's second term.
Indeed, the other great conflicts of our age seems to be almost spilling into the streets of the United States and of London, certainly. What are your views on the situation at Columbia University this week that's seen the pro-Gaza, anti-Israel spill into horrific scenes? And what do you reckon a future President Trump administration would do in regards to the Middle East situation?
What you're seeing right now is what I call the DEI civil war. You're seeing the progressives in our country, the Sharia supremacists, because that's what this pro-Palestinian, and I'm on record saying the pro-Palestinian movement in America is the most anti-American movement I've ever seen on the streets of this country. And you see it at Columbia University. If you're a young Jewish student, or quite frankly, a MAGA Christian, if you walk across that campus, you will be attacked. It's a very dangerous. I have a team up there that just came from the Darien Gap and the border, and they're telling me that NYU last night and Columbia yesterday afternoon is more dangerous than the Darien Gap, is more dangerous than the cartel-controlled town of Juarez, Mexico.
How has the country got into a state like that? How has that been allowed to happen?
By the way, all the progressives, and particularly the progressive Jewish community, underwrote this for years. Remember, Columbia was taken over during BLM, George Floyd's anti-Trump. This has been building for years. And now this Sharia supremacism, and it's not going to back down. They control right now the Ivy League campuses. Columbia just announced today that for the rest of the year, courses can be taken online. So all the Jewish students won't be in the buildings. They'll be taking the courses online, I think with many other conservative students too. So the jihadists, the Sharia supremacists have won and have taken over at least Columbia. I think you're going to see many more Ivy League schools like this. I think NYU is going to go like this. The Democratic convention I think it's in August in Chicago, I believe right now on the same track will look like the exact images you saw in 1968 in Chicago. People should understand this revolt of Sharia supremacists in this country is just picking up steam, and it's going to be quite violent and quite dangerous.
And what does Biden do about it in the meantime? How do you solve it?
But if Biden doesn't appease it, the way he solves it is he's going to try to get Netanyahu to back off going in Rafah and taking. There's 4 combat divisions of Muslim Brotherhood Hamas in the south. There's 2 combat divisions in Judea Samaria. He needs to get a ceasefire quickly. You saw in Michigan, Harry, in the primary, I think it was up to a third of the voters either, and this around Dearborn, which has a heavy Arab American, Muslim population, didn't come forward. But in Ann Arbor, at the big universities, was the biggest place they did not come out to vote for him. He understands he has to appease the Muslim community, the Arab American community, which has been a key component of the Democratic Party, or he has no shot of winning Michigan. And I believe if he can't win Michigan, it's going to be very tough for Biden to win the presidency.
So US domestic policy comes before relations with Israel under Biden administration, in your view?
I think these are very inextricably linked. I think you saw the other day, which I think is kind of performative, is these assaults by the Persians and the counter assaults by Israel. I think it's very tough for us to understand truly what's going on here. And look, I covered this live on my show the day it happened. I can't believe they just fired the head of the IDF intelligence services resigned. I can't believe we had an intelligence failure from MI6, from CIA, DNI that didn't understand that Hamas had taken almost 2 years to train for this, all the logistics training, all of it.
Yeah.
When you had a airborne assault, I mean, it was a multi-pronged, over 40 miles of geography. It was a quite complicated assault on October 7th. I do not believe that our intelligence agencies, as dialed in as they are with the Egyptians, with UAE, with the Saudis, and our own assets in those areas, particularly the British and American combined, we have better intelligence than the intelligence services there. I cannot believe that we were caught blind by this. So the whole thing.
Well, you think they you believe that someone knew it was coming and let it happen?
I don't know, Harry. There has to be an investigation. Here's what I do know, is that because I've sat in those secured briefings before, we have, between the British and the Americans, tremendous resources and assets in those countries. We have partners on intelligence, whether it's Egypt, UAE, Saudi, that are every bit as good as the IDF intelligence or the Mossad. I can't believe that there was a failure of all of that, given the scale of the attack, given the sophistication of the attack, given the training that had to go on for years for the attack. I just don't believe that. I don't buy it. I need to see, and one guy resigning doesn't solve it for me. This is like a Pearl Harbor or like a 9/11. You have to get into this. And quite frankly, in the United States, everybody's looked the other way. There's been no real push for the intelligence failure on our side again in the Middle East, and it needs to happen. That's why I think there's a lot of ambivalence in the in America, including in the traditional evangelical right, which has always had Israel's back. There's a lot of questions. Now, our show, we're very pro-Israel, and I've always said you got to get the job done, but there's a lot of questions that are unanswered.
We'll move on. I know you keep a keen eye on Europe. I know you keep a keen eye on domestic politics here in the UK. How do you feel it's going to play out? What's we've got Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, your old mate Nigel Farage lurking stage right. How do you see it playing out?
I think the Tories are actually, if you could pick a conservative party worse than the Republicans, it'd be tough to kind of create it. It would be the Tories.
I mean, that's quite a big statement.
No, it's a brutal statement. Last night you guys passed this thing finally, Rwanda, about these refugees. I think Sunak at the last second is trying to show that actually the Tories stand for something. I can't quite discern it. I think there's going to be an election wipeout if you run on a traditional Tory ticket. Like if you ran as a non-MAGA Republican here, except in the most liberal areas, in conservative America and red America, you would not stand a shot. That would be the equivalent, I think, of the Tories right now. I hope, and I've been a huge supporter of Nigel's, to get back into this thing in some official capacity. I think Nigel Farage will be prime minister after Sir Keir. And I think Nigel Farage, with this kind of populist nationalist take, it will be a guy that already had the most important political development with Brexit. I think he's the guy to actually see Brexit through. And I believe he'll be prime minister one day. And I think he will lead the United Kingdom to the sunlit uplands.
That's quite the endorsement. So Rishi's gone. Keir Starmer, what do you think? A 5-year Keir Starmer term ends in Nigel Farage as PM. How does that happen?
The only thing here, I believe, and I think this is what wiped out Liz Truss, is that there's a major financial crisis, I think, coming from the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, if you look at all the indices, you're becoming a poorer and poorer country. You have a wealthier and wealthier elite, and you certainly have a wealthier global elite that's coming in and either staying in London or trying to get citizenship or spending money there, but you're becoming a poorer and poorer country every year. I think that's going to end to a crisis, because I do believe we're going to a global financial crisis. We have $300 trillion that's borrowed. We're going to have a margin call. And the United States is the worst. Okay, the United States is by far the worst. It's totally irresponsible. Our elites are totally irresponsible about this. But we have $300 trillion borrowed at every level throughout the world. And I think we're heading towards a margin call that's going to be a financial crisis. I happen to think it's going to be on Sir Keir's watch. And that's what I think will lead back to the premiership of Nigel Farage.
Do you think Nigel Farage, does a hostile takeover of the Conservative Party, or a new party launches in the UK, a new movement? If you were advising him, how would you play it?
My advice to him is that after the slaughter they're going to have at the polls and not really standing for anything, that's time for Nigel. Like I was a big advocate of not starting a third party after the 2020 election was stolen. There was a lot of talk. President Trump was talking about it. There's a book that's out now called Finish What We Started that talks about our effort at War Room to get a grassroots level, what we call the precinct strategy, and take over the Republican Party by the grassroots. And people should understand, in the last 4 months, we essentially removed Mitch McConnell as the minority leader in the Senate. He's kind of sidelined. We took out the Republican Party's senior apparatus, all of them gone, and we fired a sitting Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, first time in the history of the Republic. And right now, we have a second speaker in our gun sites to remove. That's all from a grassroots basis. So I would just tell my brothers and sisters in the United Kingdom, you can do this at the grassroots level. That's what UKIP was about at one time. Nigel Farage is a populist. Nigel Farage is a nationalist. You need to put Great Britain first, the United Kingdom first, and you need particularly put your citizens first. What's happened is London's become the global city of the global elites, and they actually run the deal. And so it's time that changes. And I just think the way I see it, the Tory party is like the Republicans. Don't spend a lot of time trying to build third parties. Take over the apparatus that's right in front of you.
Steve Bannon, it sounds like you feel like you're more powerful on the outside than on the inside. Is that where you're going to be staying in a future Trump administration, should he win?
No, Harry, President Trump, if you know the U.S., is that there's even conservative media doesn't always have Trump's back. The war room's built up over the last 4 years of really being the core place for MAGA and ultra MAGA to have President Trump's back. Like, for instance, we disagree with President Trump right now. President Trump's been very generous to Speaker Johnson. We're on Johnson every day for not having Trump's back, for not starting investigations into this lawfare, for being all over Johnson. President Trump needs a media platform, and right now the War Room is providing that platform. There can't be a higher service I can do for President Trump of the MAGA movement than just continue to do what we've been doing over the last couple of years.
Steve Bannon, thank you for joining us on Never Mind the Ballots. Come back and see us again before polling day, I hope, yeah?
Will do, Harry, anytime.
Steve Bannon there. Prince Harry is front and centre of a courtroom dispute over his visa after he admitted taking drugs in his controversial memoir, Spare. I caught up with the man leading the charge to have his visa released in a legal action against the US government. Niall Gardner from the Heritage Foundation. Niall, what's going on? What's the latest in your case against Prince Harry?
Well, thanks very much, Harry, for having me on the show today. As you point out, and we have called for the release of Prince Harry's immigration records. Those records are now being reviewed by a federal judge, and the judge will issue a ruling within the next few weeks as to whether or not those records should be released to the American public. And we're arguing that the American people have a right to see what exactly Prince Harry put down on his immigration application to the United States, especially in light of his revelations of extensive illegal drug use in his own memoir, Spare. So we want to see accountability and transparency from the Biden administration. And the Department of Homeland Security has fought tooth and nail against the release of these records. But a federal judge ordered them to hand over the records for his review. So that's what's happening right now. And I expect, yes, we're going to see a ruling on this within the next few weeks or so.
As you point out, Prince Harry, in his book Spare, he couldn't have been clearer. He used marijuana, cocaine, psychedelic mushrooms. Is it your understanding, based on hunch or based on a tip-off or based on any evidence, that he didn't provide that information of drug taking to the US authorities when he moved to America in 2020?
Well, we're simply asking US officials actually to release the records because we don't know exactly what Harry put down on his immigration application. We want to know whether or not he lied. Was he honest? Did he receive some kind of preferential treatment, favoritism from US officials? And if Prince Harry has nothing to hide here, he should be himself fully supporting the release of his own immigration records. Why all of the secrecy involved here? Why has the Biden administration gone to extraordinary lengths to prevent the release of these records? They fought in federal court to try and stop the release of the records, but a federal judge said he wanted to review the records in camera so he could see himself what exactly was contained on those records. So I have to say the lack of transparency and accountability from the Biden administration here has been absolutely outrageous and appalling. And the American people have a right to know whether or not Harry told the truth on his application here. And if anyone lies on an immigration application to the United States, that's a very serious criminal offence here. So the stakes are certainly very high for Prince Harry right now.
Just run me through what would the consequences be? Would he be banned from the United States? Would he be forced to return perhaps to the UK? What's the options on the table?
Well, that's a very good question. And without a doubt, if you lie on a U.S. immigration application, that's a criminal offence, a very serious offence. And under normal circumstances, those individuals would be removed from the United States. I mean, it's a deportable offence, which is why Donald Trump recently, in a TV interview, said that he would take appropriate action if Harry had lied on his application. So it's a very basic principle here. People must not lie on immigration applications. That's a criminal offence. Those individuals have to face the consequences, which can include, of course, deportation or removal from the country. So let's see exactly what Harry put down on his application. But if he lied, that is an extremely serious offence, and normally an individual who lies would be removed from the country or asked to leave the United States of America.
Do you think we might be able to see any of this evidence? Is there any feeling of those closely linked to the case, your lawyers and your team out there, that perhaps this document, this visa application, could be unsealed in the way that documents are often unsealed in court cases? Will we ever get to see this visa application, or are you concerned this is going to continue to be done in secret?
Well, I think so far the legal case has gone very, very well. The federal judge has treated this issue very seriously. We've had 2 federal court hearings before a federal judge, and so this has become, I think, one of the most significant immigration-related legal cases in recent U.S. history. And so far, we believe the case has gone very well. And the fact that the judge has ordered to review the documents himself in camera is the legal term here. That's a very, very positive sign. And in many cases like this, where a judge does review documents in camera, often the documents are subsequently released. So we'll have to see what the final outcome here is, but we are very positive. We believe the case has gone extremely well so far, and we believe that the American people have a right to see these records in the interest of openness and transparency. After all, this is the United States of America here.
It does feel, though, that the Biden administration, the Biden government, has been fighting this tooth and nail up to the point where they couldn't fight it and are now cooperating. Do you think that would change with a potential change of administration? Obviously, you mentioned Donald Trump's words on this, but do you think that the timescale of this case could bleed into the next administration, possibly with a change of government in the United States next year?
Well, I think that Donald Trump, who could well be president again of the United States, I mean, he's made it 100% clear that he regards this case as a very serious matter, and he has stated publicly that he would take appropriate action against Harry if he lied over his. He
doesn't seem to be a big fan of Prince Harry, and he's certainly not a big fan of his wife Meghan. Do you think there is some sort of what is protecting Harry in this? Do you think he got special treatment because he is a royal, or a sort of woke progressive royalty out in California?
Yeah, those are all very good questions. Of course, Prince Harry is loved by woke liberal elites, and as the issue of favoritism here, well, let's see what's in the records.
Yeah. Have you heard from? Have you heard from? Is there any back channels from California? Anyone asked you to back off on this one, or any word from the palace even?
No, I mean, there's been no statement from Buckingham Palace on this. No public response at all from Prince Harry's team. And at the end of the day, of course, this case is against the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah,
we're calling on them to release Prince Harry's records, and they should release them. And also, as I said earlier, Prince Harry should welcome the release of the records if he has nothing to hide. And so Harry should be supporting the release.
I wouldn't hold your breath. I wouldn't hold your breath on that one. I suspect if they've fought it this far, they'll carry on fighting. Now, just while I've got you, I hear you had Liz Truss in town this week. She was a guest here on Never Mind the Ballots not long ago. Caused quite a news storm. How was she out there?
She was terrific, actually. I hosted her for a big speech at the Heritage Foundation this morning in Washington, D.C. For the official US launch of her book.
How's it going down out there?
Very, very well, actually. We had a big audience. The book's doing very well in the US. There's also been quite a lot of media coverage. Certainly the audience we had at Heritage, very, very receptive towards her message. Liz Truss is very popular among US conservatives. And she stands up for conservative principles, values, ideas. She fights for them.
I suspect you'll probably be seeing her probably more in the US than in the UK for the time being. We're going to have to leave it there. Niall Gardner from the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much. Come back and see us soon when you know more about your case, yeah?
I definitely will do, Harry. Thanks. All the best.
Niall Gardner there from the Heritage Foundation. We'll look at the polls in some detail first, but now it's that time of the week. It's the political weather with our very own Sun on Sundays, Kate Ferguson.
Hello and welcome to the political weather, but with a twist. This week, we're taking the temperature of things in American politics, where we're expecting the battle for the US presidency to be the closest ever. We may be used to political storms over here in Britain, but everything is bigger in the US. And Washington is being battered by a full-blown political hurricane in the form of Donald Trump's trial. Trump is accused of using hush money to cover up his alleged affair with porn star Stormy Daniels. He denies the allegations and has branded the trial a witch hunt, accusing Joe Biden of using it to try and wreck his chances of becoming president again. So, will this bombshell court case cause Trump's campaign to blow off course? Or will it stir up such a whirlwind of anger among Trump supporters that it ends up actually carrying him back into the White House? Trump might be finding himself on thin ice with his court case, but it's this guy, Joe Biden, who keeps slipping up, quite literally. The US president, who's 81 years old, keeps falling over in front of the cameras, fueling concerns about his health. So, what's the solution? Biden's bought himself a pair of $150 ultra-sturdy trainers known as Hoka transport shoes. Democrat aides are hoping these trainers will keep his feet firmly planted on the ground and Biden firmly planted in the White House. Amid all those trials and tribulations of American politics, there is one ray of sunshine to be had. After months of political storms, the House of Representatives has finally approved a $61 billion package of support for Ukraine. Some are saying it's Britain's Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who was actually pivotal in getting the row sorted. David went to see Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago home to lobby for support for the cash. And after that, well, Trump appeared to ditch his public criticism of the aid. And finally, it's election year, so let's check in on those all-important opinion polls. And you can see that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are quite literally neck on neck, both on 44 points each in the race for the White House. But importantly, Trump is leading Biden in 6 out of the 7 key battleground states. So it really is all to play for.
Thanks, Kate. Come join us. And also joining us is the director of polling firm JL Partners, Scarlett Maguire.
Hello.
What's the experts say? Is it as close as it looks?
Yeah, it's definitely as close as it looks. In fact,
exciting.
I think it's very exciting. It certainly makes a nice change from over here. But I think, yeah, anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen is lying or has got something a bit wrong with them. It's incredibly close and the margins are very small.
Is that close across the board, or how does it look in the 6, 8 states that actually decide these elections?
So you're absolutely right. So it is close if you look at a national head-to-head. In fact, it was Trump had a bit of an advantage a few months ago. He was looking like he was pulling ahead. That has now seemed to have evened out, but national head-to-head polls don't mean a huge amount in America. What really counts are those swing states. So looking at Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina, and that is where the race is going to be concentrated. And then even within those races, Trump has an advantage in the southern ones mostly. Arizona's a slightly different proposition now, especially given what's happened with the abortion ruling that we've just had. Biden tends to do better in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, but it's very close, and they'll both be pouring all their resources into those states.
And obviously, you've got Trump's in the dock this week, not on the stump. Is that cutting through in the polls? Is that making any difference, or could it perversely help him with wall-to-wall TV coverage?
I think if you'd asked us that a year ago, we'd be much more inclined to say that all of this was going to hurt him, and was one of the biggest question marks going into November 2024 was what was the impact of the sort of criminal trials against Trump, especially with independent voters. Now, actually, it looks increasingly like this is not going to impact voters. They've kind of got it priced in already. They know who Donald Trump is. They've known him since 2016. It's rallied his base, and independents aren't particularly surprised. And I think actually what's going to matter more, obviously things might happen, there might be black swan events. It's a very unpredictable race. We don't know what's going to happen. But I think the things that are going to matter more are the economy, immigration, and then perception of the two leaders, especially Biden, and some of his weaknesses.
On those weaknesses, I mean, they're a ten a penny. Videos of him walking around in, as Kate pointed out, in his new shoes. You're a pollster, not a bookie, but what are the odds of both of them being the candidates? Almost 100% now?
Well, we actually, it's good you asked us that. We asked the American people whether they even thought Biden would still be alive in 4 years' time by the end of his second term. And only... four in 10 didn't think he'd make it to the end of the second term.
Wow. I mean, if that's playing on people's minds in public when answering pollsters' questions, God knows what they're thinking in the privacy of the ballot box.
That's absolutely it. And again, especially with, if you look at, he's really struggling holding on to his base. Now, they might come home, but there are other issues at play there, especially things that are happening in the Middle East, and some of his drop-off there with ethnic minorities and younger voters. But yes, if you have any of his base plus independents worrying about his mental capabilities, we also asked, do you think he'd be able to get through a meeting with Putin? Do you think he'd be able to remember his key advisor's name? People don't think he's going to be able to,
and what
especially
do they say about
independents.
Trump?
They give him an edge on all of those things. They still think they have doubts about his age. They have plenty of doubts about other aspects of Trump's character. But fundamentally, they think he is more sort of cognizant and is better able to get things done than Biden is.
And what's the latest the Democrats could move? August, really, if they wanted to do it, but I mean...
If they wanted to do it, I think August throws them up all sorts of problems of their own. There's not a natural successor, so we've polled plenty of alternatives to Joe Biden in hypothetical matchups. None of them seriously outperform Biden versus Trump. I think that's partly because it feels like Joe Biden's team have deliberately kept people away from that spotlight, deliberately don't have someone who could easily take it on. And of course, Kamala is historically unpopular, so we have her as the most unpopular vice president of recent times.
One thing he's got going for him, he is the only man that's ever beaten Donald Trump in a presidential race. So far, is that playing out for him? But he did it from his basement in the middle of lockdown.
He did it from his basement in the middle of lockdown, and there's one more factor that looks quite unfavourable to Biden in 2024 compared to 2020, given that this is a rehash of 2020 in lots of different ways, not least the key characters, and that is the impact of third-party candidates. So Trump was hugely helped in the race against Hillary Clinton by third-party candidates that split the field. That is looking like it's going to be the case this time round. Not only do you have RFK, but you have Jill Stein, you have Cornel West. Looks like at the moment they're going to be hurting Biden more than Trump and make the whole race more unpredictable.
Kate, what's your bet? You reckon they'll both be the candidates?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Well, nothing's 100%. I shouldn't say 100% with the pollster.
Yeah. Margin of error.
If I was a betting gal, I'd put money on definitely them both being the candidates. I mean, it's kind of, in a way, quite a grim state of affairs, isn't it, that people aren't enthusiastic necessarily about Biden within the Democrat Party, but there's no heir apparent. I don't think these are the leaders people necessarily wanted.
We know that from over here. We've seen David Cameron make the sort of tentative toe into the Mar-a-Lago swimming pool. There's an image for you. How, do you think that, from a domestic point of view, do you think our politicians are ready for what's coming down the line? The return of Donald Trump?
I don't know if our politicians can ever truly be ready for Donald Trump, but what's clear is that they're trying to get ready for Trump. So you've obviously had David Cameron make that trip to Mar-a-Lago to try and chat him up over the Ukraine aid. We obviously did see that package go through. And the other thing that's in Labour, obviously it looks like a Labour victory. So Keir Starmer probably going to see him go to America, and we've seen Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy started making trips to America and trying to chat up the Republicans, because he already knows quite a lot of Democrats, and it's the Republicans he's trying to chat up at the moment.
Given that, a Trump endorsement, say, of Nigel Farage in the middle of a general election campaign, do you really think that, interested to hear thoughts on both of you, the idea that Rishi Sunak could hold the general election in the same month, even the same couple of weeks as the US election, that'd be mad, wouldn't it, Kate?
Well, I actually think that he may well hold that general election quite close. I think that it would be good for Rishi to have Nigel Farage as busy as possible elsewhere in his election. And so if Nigel was out punditing in America, talking about Trump making lots of money in America, maybe not running in our general election, that might be pretty helpful for Rishi Sunak.
Sort of send him overseas. You see lots of British politicians in the last few weeks and months, Nigel, Liz Truss especially, trying to sort of break America. Who would ever think of doing a thing like that? How do they go down with domestic audience?
With our domestic audience or with the American?
With the American domestic audience.
I think it's very interesting. I think you can. I think Liz Truss, people sort of she's met with bafflement. I think in most places that she goes.
It's a global reaction.
Yeah, perplexion. Yeah, and I don't think the American public are necessarily that different from the UK public. I think it's quite different. I think when you watch how Nigel Farage and how Liz Truss talks to American audiences, it's very telling. Nigel Farage seems to talk much more on parallels between the two countries, on about Trump and about the sort of struggles facing the American public, as he would put them, as much as the UK public. Whereas Liz Truss seems to get lost in the intricacies of the UK sort of what she would call the deep state, the civil service, and the blob, and all of that. And I think all of that gets quite lost on the American audience, who, frankly, they're quite interested in the royal family. They're not very interested in that much else about us. And so I think, British politics and the intricacies of it are lost on them.
Fair enough, guys. Thank you for joining us. Just quickly, if you did have to put a bet, Trump or Biden, who's going to win?
Don't like bets. Trump.
Okay.
I put money on Trump, I think.
I think that's all three of us. Thanks, guys. Come back soon.
Great.
This was Never Mind the Ballots, US special. Good night.